Shalom, and welcome to What the Watchman Sees, a ministry that will sift through all of the social media noise to show you news of importance from the Most High's perspective. As watchmen, we are here both to warn of dangers and give biblical answers for dwelling in the secret place of the Most High during these times of confusion. Tell your family and friends to like, share, and subscribe as we delve into what Yahweh has for us, the apple of his eye. Let's get to work.
Shalom, everyone. We're going to continue with our weekly Bible study. And this week, we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 48 and 49 as part of our continuing study on Find Your Tribe in 2023. So we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 48 and 49. Before we begin that, we always are reminded of 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, study to show ourselves approved unto the Most High, workmen who need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, and that all scripture is Yahweh breathed, or Yahuwah breathed, and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the person of the Most High may be complete, thoroughly furnished unto every good work. So as we open up, as a quick review, we're in the last part of our first quarter of this yearly study. And in the first quarter, we talked about what the gospel is. We talked about the need for us to find our own tribe, and to build with that tribe and protect that tribe. And that once the tribes are identified, then this national identity will be able to come forth, and we will see what the Most High has us and has for us as we move forward. So with that during this study, we're going to look at the family chosen by the Most High to become his nation that would carry his name. We're going to enter this study through Jacob, or Israel, at the end of his life, and the blessing or the prophecy that he spoke over his children prior to giving up the ghost. We're going to be reading from Genesis chapter 48 and 49, and then we will go back and look at, through the slides, some salient points from both those chapters. So first, we'll open Genesis chapter 48. This is the section where Jacob blesses Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's two sons. Sometime later, Joseph was told, "Your father is ill." So he set out with his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. When Jacob was told, "Your son Joseph has come to you," Yasharel, or Israel, rallied his strength and sat up in bed. Jacob said to Joseph, "The Most High, Almighty, appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me and told me, 'Behold, I will make you fruitful and multiply you. I will make you a multitude of peoples, and will give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. And now your two sons born to you in Egypt before I came to you here shall be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Any children born to you after them shall be yours, and they shall be called by the names of their brothers in the territory that they inherit. Now, as for me, when I was returning from Padam, to my sorrow, Rachel died along the way in the land of Canaan, some distance from Ephrath. So I buried her there beside the road to Ephrath, which is Bethlehem. When Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he asked, 'Who are these?' Joseph said to his father, 'They are the sons the Most High has given me in this place.' So Jacob said, 'Please bring them to me that I may bless them.' Now Israel's eyesight was poor because of old age. He could hardly see. Joseph brought his sons to him, and his father kissed them and embraced them. I never expected to see your face again, Israel said to Joseph, but now the Most High has let me see your children as well. Then Joseph removed his sons from his father's knees and bowed face down. Joseph took both of them, with Ephraim on his right hand toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh on his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them close to him. But Israel stretched out his right hand and put it on the head of Ephraim the younger, and crossing his hands, he put his left on Manasseh's head, although Manasseh was the firstborn. Then he blessed Joseph and said, May the Elohim before whom my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, walked, the Elohim who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from all harm, may he bless these boys, and may they be called by my name, and the names of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow into a multitude upon the earth. When Joseph saw that his father had placed his right hand on Ephraim's head, he was displeased and took his father's hand to move it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's. Not so, my father, Joseph said. This one is the firstborn. Put your right hand on his head. But his father refused. I know, my son, I know. He said, he too shall become a people, and he too shall be great. Nevertheless, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his offspring shall become a multitude of nations. So that day, Jacob, or Yaakov, blessed them and said, by you shall Israel pronounce this blessing. May the Most High make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. So he put Ephraim before Manasseh. Okay, so that's Genesis chapter 48. Now we're going to go into Genesis chapter 49. And again, Jacob is at the end of his life, and so he calls all of his sons together. Joseph obviously is one of his sons as well. So we're going to pick up with Genesis chapter 49, starting at verse 1. Then Jacob called for his sons and said, gather around so that I can tell you what will happen to you in the days to come. Verse 2, come together and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to your father, Israel. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power, uncontrolled as the waters. You will no longer excel because you went up to your father's bed unto my couch and defiled it. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. May I never enter their council. May I never join their assembly. For they kill men in their anger and hamstring oxen on a whim. Cursed be their anger, for it is strong, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I will disperse them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. Judah, your brothers shall praise you. Your hand shall be on the necks of your enemies. Your father's sons shall bow down to you. Judah is a young lion. My son, you return from the prey like a lion. He crouches and lies down like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the staff from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. And the allegiance of the nations is his. He ties his donkey to the vine, his colt to the choicest branch. He washes his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Zebulun shall dwell by the seashore and become a harbor for ships. His border shall extend to Sidon. Issachar is a strong donkey lying down between the sheepfolds. He saw that his resting place was good and that his land was pleasant, so he bent his shoulder to the burden and submitted to labor as a servant. Dan shall provide justice for his people as one of the tribes of Israel. He will be a snake by the road, a viper in the path that bites the horse's heels so that its rider tumbles backward. I await your salvation, O Most High. Gad will be attacked by raiders, but he will attack their heels. Asher's food will be rich. He shall provide royal delicacies. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Joseph is a fruitful vine by a spring whose branches scale the wall. The archers attacked him with bitterness. They aimed at him in hostility. Yet he steadied his bow, and his strong arms were tempered by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob. In the name of the shepherd, the rock of Yasharel, by the God of your father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens above, with blessings of the depths below, with blessings of the breast and womb, the blessings of your father have surpassed the blessings of the ancient mountains and the bounty of the everlasting hills. May they rest upon the head of Joseph, on the brow of his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, in the evening he divides the plunder. These are the tribes of Yasharel, 12 in all. And this was what their father said to them. He blessed them, and he blessed each one with a suitable blessing. Well, first of all, let's review the theme. Okay, our theme is build a righteous nation again using the Most High's blueprint. We've talked about the gospel and what it is. We've talked about the need to find your tribe and to build with your tribe, protect your tribe as the tribes become a national identity. And our study this time is going to be how the Most High's people moved from being tribes into their national identity. As we move forward, then we're going to talk about, which we've already started, what leadership looks like, how to choose the leaders, the qualities of leaders, and how that will manifest itself into institutions in the nation. We're headed somewhere. We are preparing to leave Babylon, as the scriptures have instructed the Most High's people to do. And we're also going to be laying the foundation so that as we do leave and as we do step off the scene, very similar to what happened with Jacob and passing the baton to his children, we're going to be talking about how that should look so that the next generation then will bring into full focus and bring to full fruition what the Most High has for his people by the name, after his name, the name of Yasharel. Okay, so who is Yasharel? Well, we're going to be speaking about the bloodline sons of Jacob, and that's why we read those two passages from Genesis chapter 48 and Genesis chapter 49. Okay, so we're looking at this whole house of Israel. Don't forget, Jacob's name was changed to Israel or Yasharel. Okay, and so in his whole house or his whole family, it includes his sons, his wives, and their maids. Okay, when I say wives and their maids, the maids of his wives. Okay. So first, we know that Jacob had two wives, Leah and Rachel. He loved Rachel, but he was tricked into marrying Leah by their father, Laban. And hopefully, those of you who are listening to this study already know that story. We're not going to go into that story, but Leah was the first wife that he was tricked into marrying. And from Leah, her firstborn's name was Reuben, and Reuben's name means the Most High looked upon my affliction, because Leah knew that Jacob was not pleased with her being his wife. Okay, so she was hoping that having children by him would endear her to him. The second child that he had by Leah was Simeon, which means his name means hearing. The Most High heard her concerns. The the third child's name was Levi, and his name means joined. So see, all of these names that she's giving her children are names that reflect the relationship that she either has or wants to have with her husband. And then the fourth is Judah, which means praise. Then Rachel, I'm sorry, Zilpah, Leah's maid, also has children, and we can go into that a little bit. Her first son's name was Gad, which means a troop, and that's a military term. Her second son's name was Asher, which means happy. Her third son's name was Issachar, which is a hire, and the fourth son's name was Zebulun, which means dwelling. Finally, Rachel and Jacob have a son, and his name is Joseph. And Joseph's name means adding. Okay. Now, as you can see, well, I'll come back to that once we get everything on here. Then after Joseph was Benjamin. Benjamin was the second and last son for Rachel. He was the last son also that Jacob had, the last in the line. But before Rachel had children, she gave Bilhah, her maid, so that Jacob could have a child by her and through her maid. Okay. So that's where Dan comes in. Dan means judge or judges. Then Naphtali, which means my wrestling. Okay, that's all of them. Right. Okay. So these represent the whole house of Israel, Jacob's sons. So his firstborn son by Leah was Reuben. Then he had another son, Simeon, by Leah, another son, Levi, by Leah, and then he had Judah by Leah. After Judah, that's when Rachel decided that she was going to have children through her maid, Bilhah. And so Bilhah had Dan and Naphtali. Then Leah gets back into the picture, and she gives her maid, Zilpah, to Jacob, and Jacob then and Zilpah have Gad, Asher, Issachar, and Zebulun. Finally, Rachel does get pregnant. She has Joseph, who becomes extremely important to Jacob. If you remember, Joseph is the one with the coat of many colors. He's the one that his brothers were angry at and decided to try to kill him. But what ended up happening is they threw him in a pit, and then they sold him to Ishmaelites, who then sold him into Egypt. And that's how Joseph got to Egypt. While Joseph was in Egypt, he had two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. Those were the two boys that we read about in Genesis chapter 48. Okay. And then, so finally, the last child of the family was Benjamin. Rachel actually died giving birth to Benjamin. So she was going to call him son of my sorrow. And rather than him being called that, his father, Jacob, said, no, I'm going to call you son of consolation. So that's who Benjamin was. Those are the whole house of Israel. Okay. So it's Jacob's sons by his wives, Leah and Rachel, and their maids, Zilpah and Bilhah. So from the very beginning of the nation started out as a family, but even the family, you've heard this said by me before, I'm going to say it again. You had 12 sons by 4 different women. That's the beginning of the people that the Most High chose. These are the chosen people that the Most High decided to give his name. All right. And that he was going to bless the rest of the world through. It started out with this family, and that family became a nation. Okay. So at the end of his life, when Jacob is getting ready to join the ancestors, he speaks a prophetic word and blessing over his children, over his 12 sons. Now there is recorded that Jacob had a daughter by the name of Dinah, and I'll mention her in just a second. But when Jacob in Genesis chapter 49 brings all of his brood, all of his children together, this is what he expounds on. Okay, and so we read it already, but this is a breakdown of it. So he talked about, first of all, he talked about Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, and in each one of those cases, he talked about them with their strengths and their weaknesses. So again, Reuben is the might of the family. Why is he the might of the family? Because he's the firstborn. He has the fullness of his father. He is the first seed coming out of his father's loins. And so therefore, the excellency and the honor that his father has falls to him. In the culture of the Hebrews, the firstborn child, and it's not just the Hebrews either, by the way, in the culture of that part of the world, the firstborn has a double blessing because the firstborn is also responsible for carrying the name of the family and being an example to the rest of the children in the family that the father has set. So the firstborn always has a double portion. And if you remember, some of the challenges that have existed, even with Jacob and his brother Esau, had to do with the blessing of the firstborn. If you remember, Jacob and Esau were twins. And when Esau came out first, Jacob was grasping Esau's heel. Eventually, Esau sold his birthright, the right of the firstborn, to Jacob for a bowl of pottage. All right. So the rights of the firstborn were important with Jacob and Esau, and the rights of the firstborn are important in Jacob's family as well, with the children that he had. So again, the strength of Reuben, he was the might of the family. He was the firstborn. He excelled in honor, and he was uncontrolled as waters. In other words, he had lots of power coming as the firstborn. But his weakness, Reuben defiled his father's bed. And what that means is Reuben had sex with one of the maids of Rachel and Leah. I should give you the specific one. I think it was Zilpah, but I'm not sure. So I would encourage you to look that up. But the point is, you don't do that, okay? And especially as the firstborn. And so because of that, Jacob told Reuben, because you defiled my bed, you will no longer excel. If you remember, his strength was excelling in honor. Well, now that he's done this, he will no longer excel. And that extends into his progeny, which is the other thing that I wanted to mention that Jacob was doing. He wasn't just speaking to his individual sons, he was speaking to his sons and their progeny. Okay. So Reuben then lost his firstborn privileges, and it stayed that way through his children as well. Okay. So now we're going to go to Simeon and Levi. They're they really didn't have any strengths. Okay. It says swords are weapons of their swords are weapons of violence. Basically, Simeon and Levi, when Jacob spoke over them, he spoke the exact same thing over them. And he says he will never enter their council and will never join the assembly. Why will he never do that? Because they killed in anger, and therefore their anger is cursed, and they are scattered in Israel. Okay. Which is the name of the nation that they're going to be. Okay. And so this was spoken over both of them. Well, why were they killing in anger? Simeon and Levi's sister Dinah was raped, and the person who raped her was a part of another people group, but the person who raped her wanted to marry her. So Simeon and Levi, without consulting with Jacob, told the guy that had raped their sister, okay, you can have her as your wife, but you and all of your family have to be circumcised first. So the guy that had raped their sister, because he wanted her, he loved her, and he wanted her as his wife, he went ahead and circumcised himself. He had all of his family circumcised. And then when they were in that weakened state, Simeon and Levi went into their camp and killed all of them. And they did that because of the rage and the anger that they had for what that man had done to their sister. So Jacob tells them about themselves, and he says, you're going to be scattered in this nation, as opposed to being and be able to participate and partake of the blessings of land and the things that go with it. You're going to be scattered in this nation. Okay. So from that point on, that was Simeon and Levi. From that point on, strengths and weaknesses aren't spoken, but Jacob does speak to the characteristics of the rest of his children. So with Judah, if you notice, Judah is in yellow. That's because Judah is the line that our Savior comes through. So it says, your brothers shall praise you. If you remember, Judah's name means praise. Your hands on the necks of your enemies. Father's sons will bow down to you. Talking about the rest of the nation. Judah is a young lion. The scepter will not depart from Judah. The scepter is the scepter of rulership. So in essence, he is telling Judah, Jacob is telling Judah, you are going to be the ruler of your people. And that's going to stay that way until Shiloh comes. Shiloh means he who is peace. And we know, looking at scripture, that is who Yeshua is. That's who Jesus is. So the scepter is not going to depart from Judah until Shiloh comes, and the allegiance of the nations is his. So all of that gets transferred to Shiloh, or Yeshua, once he comes. But Yeshua also comes out of the line and the tribe of Judah. Okay, so when it says he washes his garments in wine, his eyes darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk, that just has to do with the fact that he is going to be the king. Okay, and so all this starts though with Judah. It doesn't happen until many generations after Judah, but it starts here. Okay, then he talks about Naphtali. It says Naphtali is a doe set free, bears beautiful fawns. In other words, Naphtali is going to be fruitful. All right. Then it talks about Issachar. Issachar is a strong donkey. He saw his resting place was good and his land pleasant. And so he sent his shoulder to the burden and submitted to labor as a servant. You are in every society, you have to have somebody that's willing to get in and do the work while everybody else is running their mouth. Somebody's got to do the work. Well, that was who Issachar was. Okay. Dan shall provide justice for his people. And then he's described as a snake by the road, a viper in the path that bites horses' heels. In other words, he's part of the warrior class. Okay. As was Gad. Gad was also part of the warrior class of the family, if you will. Okay. Asher, his food will be rich. He shall provide royal delicacies. You got to have somebody that has those skills if you're going to have a nation. And then finally, well, we already talked about Naphtali. I'm sorry, I put that down there twice. So okay, then we get to Joseph. If you remember, this is where Genesis chapter 48 comes in. Joseph is described as a fruitful vine, and his branches will scale the wall. In other words, he's going to go in more places than just his general location. Okay, branches scaling the wall is like that's what a vine does. A vine covers the entire wall eventually. Okay, it says archers attacked him in bitterness. That was his brothers, but it also has to do with what's going to happen as Israel moves into nationhood. He steadied his bow, his strong arms tempered by the mighty one of Jacob, in the name of the shepherd, the rock of Israel. So in other words, all of the things that Joseph is going to do, he's doing in the name of the rock of Israel. That name is Yahuwah. Okay, so he's saying he's going to do this in the name of the God of Israel. And then he says the blessings of the ancient mountains rest on Joseph. A mountain is a place of authority and a place of leadership. So in essence, he's talking about all those who came before him and the blessings that the Most High gave to them, talking about Abraham, talking about Isaac, and then talking about his father Jacob. Those blessings were resting on Joseph. And it was those blessings were manifest in his two sons. Okay. Now, if you remember, let me go back up. Reuben lost the rights of the firstborn. So what happened to the rights of the firstborn? They came to Joseph. And therefore, part of the rights of the firstborn was the firstborn gets a double portion. Joseph got a double portion, and that's why his sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, are called by Jacob's name and not Joseph's name. See, that's why Jacob said, I'm giving your sons my name. Now, after those two sons, if you have any other children, they'll be under your name. But Ephraim and Manasseh are under my name, which means they get a part of the blessing that I'm giving to all of my sons. They were the ones who manifested the double portion. So Ephraim and Manasseh had the portion of the firstborn. And so Ephraim and Manasseh are told, as Jacob's son, they were seen as Jacob's son. They were given the blessing of the firstborn. They replaced Reuben, and they were to grow into a multitude on the earth. Now, if you remember, Joseph wanted Jacob to bless Manasseh because Manasseh was his firstborn. But Jacob said, no, I'm going to bless Ephraim as the firstborn. So Ephraim being blessed as the firstborn is the one, his seed shall become a multitude of ethnic groups. So in other words, lots of different nations are going to be coming out of Ephraim. This is part of the blessing of the firstborn that Joseph inherited. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he devours the prey. In the evening, he divides the plunder. So again, Benjamin is another warrior. Okay. Um, and if you look at some of the offspring or the progeny of Benjamin, you will see in the nation that is the case. I believe that the first king of Israel was from the tribe of Benjamin. Okay. He was a warrior, talking about Saul, King Saul. But let's go back to Ephraim for just a second and then we'll close out. Where it says the blessing of the firstborn is in this last portion here. It says his seed shall become a multitude of ethnic groups or a multitude of nations. All right. So many of those who are waking up to the fact that we are a part of the nation of Israel are looking at that as if that's a bloodline distinction. And so it's very important for us to understand that even from the beginning of the family, the Most High had a different purpose for his people. The family of Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, was not a nation. The Most High brought them out of where they were, and he made a nation of them. He made a nation of them so that they could be a nation of priests unto him. Well, what does a priest do? A priest reconciles and assists in reconciling those who need the Most High to the Most High. So Israel was never supposed to be the only people that the Most High blessed. They were to be the vehicle through which the world would be blessed. And therefore, the blessing of the firstborn was that the seed of the firstborn would become a multitude of ethnic groups, a multitude of nations. Okay, that's the blessing. And the Most High put that blessing in his people. So we as his people, the last thing that we should do is try to emulate those who are our oppressors and think that only a certain group of people has privileges and rights. The whole purpose of the nation of Israel was to bring heaven's blessings to the entire planet. The Most High created mankind in his image. He didn't just create Israel in his image. So all of that can be seen when we realize that Ephraim had the blessing of becoming a multitude of ethnic groups. And it's also interesting that Ephraim ended up being actually ended up carrying the name of Israel when Israel was divided into the northern and the southern kingdom. Ephraim and his seed didn't do the right thing. Okay, they ended up going into captivity or being dispersed by the Assyrians because they were trying to be like all the other ethnic groups around them. But where they went into the entire planet. Okay, so they're still the Most High's people, and so that's why we don't know who the bloodline people are, because the bloodline people are everywhere. We don't make that determination. We don't make that judgment. It's the Most High that's going to bring his people together. And when he does, Ephraim and or the 10 tribes that Ephraim represented after the split and Judah are going to be brought back together again. Those two sticks will become one in the hand of the Most High, the Almighty, and rule and reign in righteousness, which means that all of these things, or all of these attributes, positive traits of the individual tribes. See, these are tribes here. A nation is built off tribes. And each one of the tribes has something to contribute. That's where we want to end this lesson with. That's why we're looking at these things. Everybody's not in the tribe of Reuben. Everybody's not in the tribe of Simeon. Everybody's not in the tribe of Judah. Okay. For those of us who do think that we are in Judah's tribe, we cannot take responsibility for the position that the Most High gave us. Our job as a tribe was to facilitate Shiloh. It wasn't to exalt ourselves. Okay. We are the tribe of praise. Okay. That's our job. That's our primary job. Our job is to praise. If you remember, even when the children of Israel were coming out, or actually going into the land of promise, and they came to Jericho, and the Most High told them to circle the city for 7 days in a row. The people who were sent first were Judah. They weren't sent with weapons. They were sent to praise. Okay, and they had trumpets. So Judah's job is to bring praise to the Most High, because when the praises go up, then the Most High's will is facilitated. All right. So the nation does have warriors. The nation needs warriors, but we're not like the Gentiles. We're not like our oppressors. Okay. What we have done in our nation is what Simeon and Levi did. They acted off their emotion. They acted in anger. And the head of the family said, I'm not going to be in concert with that. Okay. And I'm not going to join that. That's not who my family is. You have brought shame to this family by doing what you did. So it's not to say that they should not have been angry, but it does say that they had to temper their anger by going to their father and saying, so how should we handle this? And then he would have told them, here's how you handle it. Okay. So all of the 12 tribes have an important role to play, which is why you need to know which tribe you belong to. And then let the Most High bring us together. What we're trying to do right now is jockey for position as to who's going to run everything in the nation. That's what the Gentiles do. That's how they operate. They lord it over people. The Most High's people don't lord it over people. So anytime you hear yourself say, or anytime you hear another child of Yasharel say, well, as soon as we get in charge, we're going to put our feet on the necks of our enemies, just like they had their feet on our necks. That's the wrong spirit. That's the spirit of Antichrist, to be very blunt about it. Okay. That spirit is what's ruling the world right now. The Most High is not going to replace one Antichrist with another. He is going to usher in a Shiloh rulership, which brings peace. So that's what we wanted to share. And as we continue with our study, we leave the study with the Aaronic blessing. Father, bless you and keep you. Father, make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Father, lift up his countenance upon you and give you his shalom.